It's about you tapping into the divine intelligence of heaven in order to download solutions for the earth. So here's where the caveat comes when it comes to the enemy and why he wants to attack creatives. Hey there, welcome back to another episode. Listen, I am Cornell Jermaine, your host. I appreciate you for joining me and tuning in. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you are familiar and you've been here before, listen, I thank you so much for always taking the time to join me. Listen, today we're gonna continue our conversation on branding your creativity. And in this conversation, we're really talking about the creative nature of man from a fundamental perspective, right? If you've missed the first two episodes, I want you to go back and check them out. Last week we talked about why God needs creatives, right? The only way you will move from survival mode to thriving is if you activate that creative muscle. And how do you do that? If you have not watched that episode, go back, watch that episode, and come back to this one. I believe we'll have it linked in the description section of this particular video. Go back and watch that. But this week we're talking about why the enemy, some call him the devil, some call him Satan, but why the enemy attacks creatives. Now, as we get into this conversation, we have to understand and define the word creative from a context that will help you follow what I am going to speak about today. Shameless plug, brand your creativity, turn your talent into a thriving business. Something that I go through, and you can check it out at the link below. It's an audiobook that is available on audiobook distributing platforms. So check it out, listen to it, see what is necessary for you, take it to heart, start to implement some of the things, and by all means, come back, share with me what it is that you've learned, and let me know if it's helped you at all. When I'm talking about creatives, I'm not talking about just the ability to perform an art. It's inclusive of that, but not limited to it. When I'm talking about a creative, I'm talking about someone who has identified their divine nature, right? They've identified their divine nature and they have committed to, by any means necessary, staying in the flow of that. Now, if we understand this, you'll capture what I'm trying to say, because when it comes to your divine nature, which is your creative nature, right? Because we were created in the likeness of God and in his image, right? And his divineness is creativity. He spoke light, he formed man. This is all creative nature. But bigger than that, the macrocosm of that is his omniscience, right? It's his all-knowingness. And this is where our divine nature comes into play. Because I personally believe that as a creative, we have a divine access into the window of God's divine intelligence. And his intelligence is his omniscience. It's his all-knowingness, right? He gives us the ability to tap into that all-knowingness, to tap into that omniscience at will, right? However, because we were created in flesh and we're formed in flesh, all this dirt and filth has come together to make what we call this human mankind, right? We have to follow certain protocols in order to access that divine nature. So it's not something that we just tap into without positioning or posturing ourselves in a certain way. This is what we have to understand. So when it comes to the enemy attacking creatives, he's attacking that flow of all-knowingness, that flow of divine intelligence. And when it comes to that flow, we're talking about creatives. We're talking about them from a framework of being able to take nothing and make something, to take problems and create solutions, to take issues and create resolve. You get what I'm saying? That is your creative and divine nature. It's bigger than performing arts. It's bigger than crafting a beautiful gown. It's bigger than writing a lyric or a melody. It's about you tapping into the divine intelligence of heaven in order to download solutions for the earth. So here's where the caveat comes when it comes to the enemy and why he wants to attack creatives, because those people who have tapped into this divine nature and understand the essence of it and what role it plays here in the earth, those are the people that he wants to get rid of. And when I say get rid of, he wants to steal, kill, and destroy. Whether it be their physical person or just their mind and their emotion. And that's what I want to get people to understand, because many people look at the attack of the enemy as an attack to destroy them physically. While that could be a play of his, it's also a tactic of his to distract you, to get you off focus, to derail your purpose and destiny. And he does that usually by way of tapping into issues that have been unresolved, right? He does that by tapping into insecurities that you maybe are not honest about, or whatever the case may be. He does that by hijacking your mind and hijacking your place in the earth realm. And if he can distract you, if he can frustrate you, if he can cause you to lose focus, then he has accomplished his goal of being the ruler and the power of the earth. That is the attack, and that's where the attack comes from. We have to understand this, because if he can only access the earth realm by way of human intervention, right? So he has to have individuals who have some way, whether consciously or unconsciously, bought into the idea or into the philosophy or into the false doctrine that he has presented. So if you tap into that and you accept that as truth, whatever that may be, it could be about you as an individual, it could be about the community that you're a part of, it could be about the family you were born into, whatever that lie or that deception is, if you buy into that, ultimately now you have given access to the enemy in an effort for him to hijack not only your mind, your purpose, your destiny, but the earth itself. He can rule the earth itself, that in his mind, he has now become just like God. You have to understand that the enemy's objective is to be like you. You were formed and shaped in the image and likeness of God. You were given the power. You were given the authority. You were given dominion. And that's exactly what he wants. He wants the power, the authority, the dominion. But he can only access it if you allow him entry. When we look at this conversation, it's important to understand that the enemy's objective is to gain earth as his kingdom, which is ultimately him hijacking. You know how they say people carjack? You know, you stop at the light and they pull up to you. Before you know it, they done pulled up to you, snatched your door, pulled you out, and now driving off with your car. It was a hijack, a carjack. They hijacked the car. The enemy wants to hijack the earth from mankind. And he does this through the power of mankind. The power of what? The power of their mind. And this is the central place of your creativity. It's the central place of your creativity, because when the spirit realm downloads things from heaven, now your mind has to conceptualize those things in order to birth them out in the earth. So this creative divine nature is really the systematic way of the spirit of man and the mental capacity of man working in concert in a way to bring downloads and uploads, bring downloads from heaven and upload it into earth, bring downloads and concepts from heaven and upload them into earth. It's this synergy that's going on between those two components of mankind in an effort to bring solutions, to bring aid to problems in the earth realm. That is the creative nature. And the hijacking comes because he knows, unlike yourself, that the Lord has given you. It's biblically sound. It's biblically sound. In Psalms 115th chapter and the 16th verse, it says, the earth he has given to mankind. This is the scripture. The heaven, even the heavens are the Lord's, but the earth he has given to the children of man. That means that the earth belongs to you. So you have power to institute. He said it to Peter, behold, I give you keys to the kingdom. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, right? I'm backing up whatever you say. I got your back with whatever you choose to allow in this earth realm. Is it necessarily always my will? Not necessarily. But if you allow it, like the old folks used to say, if you like it, I love it, right? Now, there is another aspect to this when it comes to judgment and all that stuff, but that's a whole different dispensation, if you will. But I'm talking now about you and I abiding here in the earth and allowing the power of God, the power of the kingdom of heaven to invade earth. And he does that by way of us, by way of you, by way of me. The earth he has given to the children of man. But he also says he takes pleasure. This is Psalms, the 35th chapter and the 27th verse. The Lord be magnified who delights in the prosperity of his people. When we're talking about prosperity, you're always talking about earthly dwelling. You're always talking about the earth dwelling, because you and I, we don't need prosperity in the afterlife. We don't need prosperity in heaven. You know, prosperity is meant for mankind to enjoy here in the earth realm. And the Bible tells us that he takes pleasure in that prosperity. So what does this tell us? What does this tell us about God and his purpose for us here in earth? He has given us the earth for our pleasure. Period. It's reminiscent of the Garden of Eden. It's a place of prosperity, a place of pleasure, a place of dominion, right? That's what he's given us when it comes to the earthly dwelling. He takes pleasure in that prosperity, and the enemy knows that. So if he can conquer or get the people who understand their role in this process. Now, there are many who don't get it, right? But that's why I'm here right now. There are many who don't get it. For you that understand and get it, the attacks come because he's trying to hijack. And I'm telling you, more times than not, the hijacking will come by way of little things that just irritate you, that are meant to just poke and pick and pry and slowly nip at you. Not these big catastrophic events. Yeah, those have their place. But it's those little things that just nitpicky, right? You just irritated, just stop. What is going? You just irritated, whether it be because of circumstance or individuals. And let me tell you something, when it comes to individuals, the enemy will use people. Sometimes the people closest to you, sometimes the people closest to you that are saved. So don't think just because your friend is Christian that the enemy won't use them to irritate, frustrate, cause you to lose focus, or to damage, destroy your self-esteem, to disappoint you, to derail you. Don't think that he won't. Because you got to understand, he moves in ways that are subtle. Your friend might know better. He or she might be in a place of vulnerability at the moment because of whatever they're going through. And now those vulnerabilities spill out into their emotions, and now they spill out onto their relationships, and now you're experiencing it, and you're like, well, what they mean by that? And I don't know, and I ain't going. Now you're offended, right? So now this offense has turned into this defense to now, not only you're thinking you're defending yourself against the individual, but that defense has built a wall now that you have blocked the flow of divine intelligence in your life. But here's the beauty of it. When you have a paraclete, a friend, a teacher who's involved in your life, they can check you. And who's that paraclete? Who's that teacher? Who's that helper? That's what that word paraclete means. Who's that helper? The Holy Spirit. Now he can reconstitute those things in your life. He can cause you to think real quick, and it comes usually in those quick moments of enlightenment, right? Where you say, what am I doing? Or when you say, why did I say that? That's the divine intelligence peeking now through this darkness in your life. You've given into the darkness. You done turned all the lights off, closed the shades. You don't want to be bothered. You just want to sit in the dark and wallow in your despair. Well, this little glimpse of hope will come, right? In the form of a thought, in the form of a little subtle jolt that says, this ain't for you. You know better. You know how to get back. That's not your position. Lean into those, because that's the divine intelligence of God trying to peek back into your life. And I guarantee you, when you open up and allow that intelligence to have way, now you can be open now again to this divine nature. And you can walk in the authority that you have been called to walk into as a creative, as a solutionist, as a problem solver, as one who brings aid to issues in the earth. When I'm talking about a creative, I'm talking about one who's on assignment. Not one who's just doing things because it feels good, but one who is on assignment, and they have tapped into this ability to now interpret the things of the Spirit and relate them to the things of the flesh. And what do I mean by that? They interpret the things of the Spirit and they process them now through this mental capacity called the mind, right? The mind, which is ultimately the conduit of this divine nature. It allows you to receive, like we said, receive And now you download, upload, right? Now this flow, this frequency is free to flow within your life. When it comes to the creative nature of man, this divine nature, this glimpse into divine intelligence, it's about a flow. There's an old song that the old saints used to sing. It says, there's a flow in the spirit. And the request in the lyric is that God would teach us how to enter in. We enter into that flow by understanding what we're dealing with when those frustrations, distractions, those people who really, here's the caveat, don't really mean you any harm. Many times they don't know what they're doing. All they're doing is feeling. All they're doing is performing out of their emotions. They don't know that they're distracting and derailing and causing disappointment in you. And their intentions, not always, is to distract or derail. They just haven't learned how to regulate this area in their life. But you have. So now that you understand, you can look at those situations, look at those people, and you now know how to handle them. You now know when to remove yourself. You now know when to say, hey, let me call you back. You now know how not to let their little issues and little things disrupt your flow. Because you understand that you're a conduit of divine intelligence. And because you're a conduit of divine intelligence, you take pride in who you are and you take authority in how you handle or you're handled in your relationships with the people that you commune with. This idea, this concept is nothing new. It's something that we have been doing and dealing with for centuries, right? I think understanding it and having the opportunity to listen and to re-listen to it gives us the proper framework in order to understand that this is something we cannot just sit on and think that, oh, because we confess with our mouth and believe in our heart, and because we're made in His image and His likeness, that we can just walk freely. No, there are attempts from the enemy to disrupt the flow of divine intelligence in your life. But here's the promise. The promise is that He will give you peace whose mind is stayed on Him. And when you're talking about stayed, you're talking about, it's almost like this little current that's just resting right above. That as you're experiencing disappointment, this current is keeping you steady. You're feeling a little of the bump, right? It's not that you don't feel, but it's keeping you steady. It's keeping you in the flow where you're able to take the bruises, the bumps, the little turbulence, but you're understanding that it's not forever. It's not for always. And you're understanding that the reason for the little turbulence is because there is a promise that you are fulfilling. And the promise is that He who hath begun a good work in you is able to perform it. And He will do. But you just remember this one thing, that you don't fight against flesh and blood. So when those people, those individuals, either knowingly or unknowingly, right, come to try to disrupt, to frustrate, to derail, you don't have to fight them. You just go into your secret place, download that divine intelligence, and allow Him to give you a creative solution to that problem. Listen, I'm Cornell Jermaine. I thank you so much for joining me here once again. Listen, to all my creative entrepreneurs, to all of my creative individuals, those who have identified their divine intelligence, their space, their sector in society, and you are standing in that proudly with authority. I salute you today. I celebrate you today. Listen, don't allow anything or anyone to disrupt the flow of intelligence in your life. You have a job to do and you have a promise, and guess what? He will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. I thank you so much for joining me. Listen, check the links below for all the previous episodes if you've missed them, and I will see you back here next week, same time, same place. Until then, take care.